So we'll give some folks a chance to hop in and then we'll get started. Yay, yay. Awesome, awesome. All right, I see people coming in the door. We can get started. Welcome to another exciting episode of Meet the Author, as we are in our 9th year of Meet the Author. I know, it's crazy. How did this even happen? But yeah, here we are in the 9th year of Meet the Author. Those of you that have been playing with us for a long time know that this all started at the Pyramid Club many years ago. We used to meet once a month at the club and have lovely glasses of wine and hors d'oeuvres and look out the window of the 52nd floor of the Mellon building and see the city of Philadelphia. And then we were on Zoom. And we have continued to be on Zoom, even though we are now out and about and enjoying life in person. So we have a combination of in-person events and we have some Zoom events. And today we have a Zoom event. And one of the blessings of having a Zoom event is I can have authors from anywhere. Probably Earth would be a good thing. I don't have them from Mars or anywhere, but anywhere on this planet. So we will get started in just a second. I see some more people coming in. I want to give a shout out for next month's program. It is January 13th, and we are going to have Kamika Royal. She wrote a book called Boom, Not Paved for Us, Black Educators and Public School Reform in Philadelphia. So whether you're a Philly person or not a Philly person or an educator or not an educator, interesting topic, interesting conversation. We're going to do that on Zoom, noontime Eastern, January 13th. And I'm going to put a plug in for another thing at the Pyramid Club. January 27th, I am doing comedy at the Pyramid Club with the wonderful Wayne Cotter. Karith, have you ever worked with Wayne Cotter?
I have not. I've worked with Tom Cotter, but not Wayne Cotter.
And Tom Cotter, I know, and his wife, they're lovely. And they are not related. Yet there are.
I know.
It is a crazy thing. But we will be performing January 27th at the Pyramid Club. Those of you that are in the Philadelphia area, I would love to see you there. And that registration info should be up shortly. So now we are ready to begin. And when I do my introduction, I never read the formal, like, where they went to school and all their accolades. I just want to let you know how we met. So it was in Las Vegas, and it was September, a couple years ago. We were speaking at the big SHRM, Society for Human Resource Management conference. And one of the beautiful things about being a speaker at a large conference like that is they always have a speaker room. And you can go to that room to just kind of get your head together. They always have some snacks and coffee, and it just gives you a nice space. But the real reason you go to the speaker room is to meet other speakers. And I'm telling you, I've made lifelong, case in point, I've made lifelong friends in the speaker room. So Karith and I met in the speaker room at SHRM, I think it was 2021, yep, in September in Las Vegas. Great conversation, and realized we're both comedians and we both have so many people in common in our circle of friends. It was destined to be. And also the work she does aligns with the work that I do. So I can refer clients to her, and it's all a good thing. So today we're going to talk about Karith's book, You Can Be Pretty or You Can Be Happy. And we're also going to talk just about ourselves and life and anything else that comes up. So please give a warm welcome to Karith Foster.
Oh, thank you. You know what? You're so sweet. We were talking about doing beauty stuff beforehand. So I think that subliminally was in because you said the book is You Can Be Pretty or You Can Be Happy.
Oh, you can be, that's right. You can be perfect or you can be happy.
Can be perfect.
You know what? Yes, that was subliminal. So in full disclosure, we were putting makeup on and getting ourselves prepared within a few minutes of launching this. So yeah. You can be pretty or perfect.
You can be pretty or
right. You can be ugly. You can be happy.
You can be ugly and happy. You can be cute and happy. You can be your pajama bottoms and happy.
You could have no pants on Zoom and be perfectly happy.
I'd be perfectly happy.
Go. So thank you
for that lovely introduction. And I think we established that we are so cool with one another that we can just start off right off the bat with anything and everything. And I'm so honored that you had me here today, Teresa. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Well, I was really wishing we could get together at the Pyramid Club in person, but you are far away. You're in Texas, right?
I'm in Tejas right now. That's correct. I am in the center of the country, the South Central, as they call it, or our own country, as we Texans refer to it.
Our own country.
And so, yeah, I'm in Dallas, or just north of Dallas, in Plano.
Nice. Well, let's tell everybody about yourself, the kind of work you do before we even hop into the book.
Sure. So, I'll jokingly say I'm a recovered journalist because that's what I got my degree in, broadcasting. I worked for a small ABC affiliate while I was still in college. So many years ago that Savannah Guthrie of the Today Show, she and I were coworkers.
Wow.
And then right after school, I got a call from one of my best friends who's like, Karith, you need to come to New York. Barbara Walters is starting this new show and you
Wow.
need to be a part of it, because she had been an intern at Primetime Live and then the Barbara Walters production company. So she knew what was going on behind the scenes. I'm like, no, I'm scared of New York. I've moved. She goes, I'm getting you a ticket. I fly out the next day, interview. 2 weeks later, I get a call saying I got the job. 2 weeks later, I start as part of the production team for The View.
That is amazing.
We didn't even have a name for the show when it started. It was a nameless show. It was just Barbara Walters' brainchild.
And friends.
Yeah. What became The View now 25 years later. If you can, so obviously I was 5 when it started.
Right. Very young.
But while I was there, I found stand-up comedy, or rather it found me.
Yeah.
And it was a wonderful outlet for the creativity that I wasn't able to have on the show, being, kind of low man on the totem pole. I got to have an audience, as I'd had in school. I had my own radio show. I hosted a broadcasting thing for our school. But what I got from comedy, and I think what has propelled me into where I am in my career now, is learning to be a master communicator.
Nice.
Because the number one rule in comedy, yes, it's be funny, but it's know your audience.
Yes, it is.
Right? Whether you're in Washington State or Washington, D.C., you have to know who you're talking to. And the good news is that most of us are more alike than we're not. We have many more things in common than we don't. And we all essentially want the same things: to be heard, to be seen, to be valued, to be loved. And that comedy career evolved. Well, while I was pursuing comedy, my mom's like, please get health insurance. So I worked at Estee Lauder in their corporate headquarters in New York City. It was like a double life. So by day, I was like corporate HR woman. By night, I was stand-up comedian, traveling all across the world, the country. I had some wonderful bosses who let me take an extra long lunch and host shows on Sirius XM on the Comedy Channel. I'd work extra hours. I'd, make up for it. And when I was leaving my tenure at The View, I got a call saying, hey, Karith, you interested in a radio TV opportunity? Yeah, of course. Oh, by the way, it's with Don Imus. Now, Imus, for those of you who may not.
Yeah, Imus in the morning, right?
Imus in the morning. He was the infamous radio host, shock radio host before Howard Stern. Actually, he predated Howard. Yeah. Who got in trouble in 2007.
Remember that?
Calling the Rutgers women's basketball team nappy headed hoes. And so I got called in after that to kind of help remedy things. And it was a really tough decision because, on one hand, it's like, do I join forces with one of the most reviled men in media? Or do I go where there's a deficit and be a voice where there isn't? Yeah. And I talk about this in the TEDx talk that I gave. And I'm glad I did it. It was certainly not without its pain points.
Sure.
It was a dream job. I mean, being on the air, national radio, TV, getting to talk news and politics and, having humor like throughout the day, like what? The only problem was I was just working with a very damaged person. And his alcoholism and drug addiction, which he wasn't taking or drinking anymore, but he never sought proper recovery. So he was a self-admitted dry drunk, which meant you never knew who you were going to get. The amazing, award-winning,
intelligent
talent,
or
a 14-year-old bipolar boy.
Wow.
And it was hard. It was hard. But through that experience, it's everything for a reason, right? I really do believe that. Came my analysis, my really kind of looking deeper into what was happening in conversations with diversity and inclusion. And why have we been doing this for decades and decades, and we're no better off than we were?
Yeah.
In fact, things are getting worse.
Yeah.
And so I guess to kind of meld everything together, how did I get to where I am now? That experience with IMUS really was a psychological bomb that went off. Like I had PTSD for a bit.
Wow.
And what I realized was that in that recovery space, that I was enough. I thought so much that I wasn't enough. I was trying to be enough for this job. I was trying to be enough for him. It was a classic case of somebody who was in an abusive situation.
Yeah.
But I got through it, and then I got married, and I just cleaned house. Like after that experience, I'm like, about 18 months in, I'm like, you know what? F him if he thinks, I'm going to let him rob me of my life and my joy and my happiness. Because I know other people, women, who like 20 years they were out of the game because they were so impacted by the abuse that they received from him. And when I say abuse, I mean like not just putting you down, verbal abuse, like brandishing a loaded gun abuse.
Wow.
That you're like, where's HR?
Yeah. It's and people, it's interesting. I watched people tolerate this for a long period of time, myself included. And you ask, why am I tolerating this? But I think for me, there's a piece of, but this person is such a big name, and I need to just put aside their warts and just. But you, how long were you working with him?
I was there for just about 2 of the 3 years of my contract. And for me, it was that element of, right, this is the star of the show. But for me, it was more of, I'm not going to let him win. That was my Achilles heel. I'm not going to let him see me cry, and I'm not going to let him push me out. So I'm going to stick through this. I'm going to take it. I'm going to, you know what I mean? And it was, well, then I'm clearly failing if I'm not doing the job well enough for it to be going well. Like something's deficient on my end, right?
Yes.
Thinking that something's wrong with you. And that's what so many of us, I think when we're in a scenario like that, where someone abuses their power. And when you have someone like that, who's the goose that lays a golden egg, and they're the president, the sheriff, the deputy, there's very little help. There's very little resources, because people are like, well, that's just who he is. But that's unacceptable. Like, you're not supposed to treat other human beings that way. How is that okay?
It is such a red flag statement, Karith, as an HR professional, when someone says that's just who he is, that's just who she is. I'm telling you, that is a red flag, because what that's saying is we tolerate bad behavior on the part of this individual.
Yeah.
We're okay with it. They can be, frankly, an a-hole.
Yeah.
And we're good with that. We're good with that.
Yeah.
That's just how they are. Wow. Wow. But what a beautiful experience, even though it, like, as you're going through it, not beautiful, but the experience itself provides you such a wonderful foundation for the work you do.
Absolutely. And that's just one facet. But after getting to that, I liken it to, the butterfly kind of coming through that cocoon, right? Where it's like, really, like, why am I in here? This is so uncomfortable. And you got to get out. You got to squeeze through it. You got to make it happen. And if anybody knows anything about science, like, you cannot cut a butterfly out of its chrysalis. It will die.
Yeah.
It will die. And the reason it will die is it has to squeeze through that tiny little hole, because all the fluid that's in its fat, cute little body has to be able to go into the wings, so that the wings can be strong and you can soar.
Wow.
And that's what I did after that. And I just really got into me, and I started taking care of me. And I wanted to get married and have kids. So I made a list. I'm a big fan of lists and manifesting. I put on the list what I wanted in a partner. And I hate to quote Dr. Phil, but anything. I mean, not that I hate to quote him, but you know what I mean? Like
Right.
his show's
He had
happening
some
out there,
wisdom.
getting like cooler. But like he said, if you can find somebody that's 80% of what you want in a person, like that's a keeper. Because anything more than that is highly unlikely. Like that's not how the average relationship goes.
Right.
I think I got about like 94% of what I was looking for that I had on my list.
Wow.
And I met my husband almost like a few weeks after I released that list that I'd worked on for months. Basically, our second date never ended. We got married within a year, got pregnant the day after we got married. Like everything that I wanted kind of came to fruition.
Wow.
And then I had this beautiful baby. I wanted to have a water birth. That was my dream, to have a water birth. Because like, what better way to come into the world?
Right.
I had a midwife and I had an OB because I just wanted to cover
Cover
my
all the
bases,
bases.
right?
Yep.
You know?
Absolutely.
And everybody was saying she was measuring fine. She was gonna be 6.5 pounds or so, which was, you know, about the size I was when I was born. Have her, and she's 4 pounds, 10 ounces,
Tiny.
tiny. And what I didn't know at the time was she was so small that she couldn't latch properly to nurse.
Oh,
So she started losing weight. I take her to the doctor. The doctor's like, "Oh, babies lose weight. They just, that's what I go, but when you're 4 pounds, 10 ounces, you can't
you don't
afford to
have a
go
lot
down
to
to
lose.
three
Yeah.
pounds. Take her to my midwife. She's like, "Hold on a second." She goes into the kitchen, brings out some donated breast milk from some other moms, puts a tube in her mouth. And it was like watching a black and white TV turn color.
Wow.
She wasn't getting nourishment. She was dying.
Oh,
And I beat my, you know, that you got one job, right? You got one job. My one job was to keep this child alive. And I was failing miserably. And one of my best friends who happens to share my birthday, we share our birthday rather, she came up to visit me just to love on me. She goes, "Karith, honey, you can be happy or you can be perfect. I choose happy." Now, when she said that, a chorus of angels should have started singing, the heavens should have opened up, the golden light should have come. But at the time, I was so in trauma mode that I was just like, what a nice thing for my friend to say. But it stuck with me.
yeah.
I juxtaposed it, right? You can be perfect or you can be happy. And I like it marinated for years, for years. You can be perfect or you can be happy. And I kept thinking about how all the times in my life, I was trying so hard to be perfect, right? Trying to be the perfect daughter, the perfect student, the perfect friend, the perfect employee, the perfect girlfriend, the perfect whatever.
Yeah.
And what was that
Employee.
costing me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What was that costing me? It was costing me peace. Sometimes it was costing me money. It
Yeah.
was costing me, you know, security. It was costing me confidence. It was costing me joy. It was costing me happiness. And that's what I realized also. There's no such thing as perfection.
No.
This thing that we're striving for, that so many of us think, whether it was ingrained because, you know, from when childhood or something like we developed along the way because of what we see in the world from, you know, television and movies and now social media, this thing that we think we have to attain to be worthy, to be valuable, this perfection. It's a lie.
Yeah.
And I thought, if I'm feeling this way, there've got to be other people who are feeling this way. And that
My
was the
gosh.
beginning of the book.
I'm sure everyone who is listening right now is this is resonating for them in some way. I think as a society, we've almost set the expectation for perfection. Even, you know, just watching TV and reading magazines and even social media. And I have to say, even for myself. So if you look at my social media, and you and I are connected on Facebook, I must look like I have the most freaking delightful life of anyone. And don't get me wrong, my life is pretty good, so I am not complaining. But I am not posting the pain. I'm not posting the mistakes. I'm not posting the bad day and the, oh, my self-esteem is low today and someone criticized the work, because that's not what social media is about. So it's all this facade, but everybody I know, I look at you and you're just the most beautiful person. But I know that, Karith, you have a day where you're just like not in a good place. And that's okay, because that's what life is.
That's life. That's life. And I think that we get so caught. I love that you call it this. You said facade. My husband and I jokingly call Facebook fake book. And we call Instagram Insta scam.
Yeah.
Because people are literally just posting the best parts of their lives. Now, every now and then you get the people who are, they post the maudlin stuff and that's
Yeah.
where they are. Like like some people are like Munchausen Facebook users. Like,
Yes.
pray for
Yes.
me. This is going wrong. Pray for this is say, and so there's like, it's this kind of interesting little space that it's in. But yes, we rarely post all of the things that are happening. Because it's not flashy, it doesn't look good, it doesn't have us that our celebrity status or whatever that we're trying to maintain. And there was a great post once, and it was a picture of like somebody on the beach, like the sun was setting, it was gorgeous, and literally like 2 feet over was a dumpster fire, like an actual dumpster fire. And I'm like, that is such a perfect analogy for like what's happening in people's lives. Like you see this great little corner of their room,
Yeah.
the disaster area, like 3 feet away. It's just what the frame of the picture catches. Right. And everybody, had to deal with that when, everybody got sent home, right, in 2020, and, having to homeschool kids if you had children, having to, get your life together, having to, just figure out your space and who you were and what was working and what wasn't. And this image that you were thinking you had to portray.
Yes.
Of, do you have it all together? Are you suffering? So many people just, we all lost something during the pandemic, whether it was our health, whether it was a loved one, whether it was income. We speakers I had my calendar wiped out for a whole year in 3 days,
Speakers
right, until I learned to do stuff
struggle.
virtually, right?
Yeah.
We all lost a sense of normalcy. It was one of those things that it impacted everyone. Now, not always at the same level, because people who were certainly in higher socioeconomic statuses were able to fend a little bit better, right? But everybody, it did touch everyone at some point.
Absolutely. it
And
did.
again, this idea of perfection, right? Like you had to rethink, what is perfection to me? And is it worth it? Why am I striving? And that's really when I wrote this book. That's when it came out. Like it finally came out. Like I'd been working on it. I wrote this book between 3 and 5 in the morning on my phone over the course of a few weeks.
On your phone.
That's when spirit talks to me. If this was like, I wish I could even say I take full credit for this. I can't.
Oh
This
my
was
gosh.
a God thing. This was a universe thing. No question in my mind. I mean, yes, these are my stories, but they were divinely inspired.
It's funny because, and I think it's a comedy thing too. We tend to be late night people, but and I think they call it the witching hour, but there's a period in the night between like 3 and 4, which is where they say, and when I say they, these spiritual folks, the veil is thin. That's what the veil is thin. So it is no surprise you see this as a divine feed, a divine intervention. And we do our best work when we open ourselves up to that. We're speakers, we're trainers. When you just say, look, I prepared, I got some PowerPoint, got some objectives, but like, feel free to use me as a vessel, because you know what these folks need, and I'll go with it. So you have a beautiful book out of just opening yourself up to that.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. And I'm going to tell you guys, those of you that are watching, if you don't already have a book, it is not an easy. Now, okay, could you just write something and go out on Amazon and yeah, you can publish something. But if you really write a book that you want to use and people read, that's no easy task, Karith.
It's not. It can seem very daunting and very overwhelming, and there are pieces that have to get put together. But not to discourage anybody who has that idea, that seed.
Totally do it.
Absolutely doable.
Yeah.
But figure out a way to do it. Figure out a way so that it's like, how you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. And while I didn't do it this way, I have a friend, great tip, that said, just start a blog. write a blog
Yes,
once a week for 12 weeks. Guess what? At the end of it, if it's all kind of in the theme of what you're wanting to talk about, you got a book. You got 12 chapters,
you do.
so it doesn't have to be as overwhelming or daunting as we think.
I know I have a friend who keeps her books to around 125 pages or less. And
Nice.
she said there's a reason I do that. One, it's easier to write. I don't have to write as much, but she said people don't want to read a big book. And this is where this whole you could be perfect or you could be happy. When I start writing, and I have not published yet, I keep wanting to tell them everything.
Yeah.
And that's ridiculous.
Don't do that to yourself.
It's
And
ridiculous.
I wrote this book. I think it's like 200 and something pages, but I wrote this book. I wanted this book to feel like a little bit like the Bible, right? Like I wanted people to be able to be going through something or needing a cheerleader or a little inspiration. And they just open the book up to any page and they get what they need in that moment.
Yeah.
That was my goal. That was my desire. So
It's
yeah, you can read it front to back, cover to
It's
cover,
beautiful. It's
or
a
you can just
beautiful
open
book.
it up and see what you need.
Yeah. The word that comes to mind when I think of your book is real. It's very real. Like there's no pretense. There's no inauthenticity. It's very real. And but I think part of that is I know you, and I think you're very real. You don't have pretense. So, but it's a beautiful. So, folks, if you haven't already read it, very uplifting, and good advice.
Thank you. Thank
Good,
you.
good advice. So you had a lot in there, and you had some stories. And from an
Yeah.
advice standpoint, if there was just one nugget that you want somebody to take away from your book, just one thing, what's like the big thing you want people to walk away with?
Be kind. Be kind.
Yeah,
Be kind,
yeah,
not just to other people. Yes, that's helpful, but be kind to yourself. We are so hard on ourselves. We wake up first thing in the morning, look in the mirror, say stuff to us that if anybody else dared to say, we'd be like, who raised you?
yeah.
How dare you? And yet we do it to ourselves on a consistent basis.
It's
Be
tough.
kind. Our words are so powerful. Words are energy and frequency. And yes, they're only as powerful as we let them be. But especially when we're enforcing it on ourselves, like that actually has a chemical reaction.
It does.
Frequencies like physiologically affect us. And of course, be kind to other people too. And kindness doesn't mean like you have to do the pay it forward thing at Starbucks and buy somebody's coffee. Like it can be totally free. And one of my favorite stories that I put in the book I want to share with you is when I was doing double duty at Estee Lauder and doing stand up at night. I was taking the bus home. I lived in the upper east side of Manhattan. I lived in Spanish Harlem.
Oh,
I
wow.
like to call it Spaha. And I on the bus, tired, and this girl in front of me gets off the bus in the like 90s, I think, and I'm going up to the hundreds. And I see she left her cell phone on the seat. Now, this is early 2000s, right? So cell phones were expensive, but they weren't as advanced. They weren't smartphones, right? Fortunately, it wasn't locked, so I could get into it, but I had no idea who she was. I didn't know who her friends were. So I just start scrolling alphabetically, right? And I thought about giving it to the bus driver, but I knew it would have ended up in like MTA lost and found hell. So I'm like, let me just scroll through. So I'm going alphabetically and I get to D and I get to dad. So I call her dad on her phone. And I'm like, hi, sir. Just so you know, everything's okay. I don't want you to worry. I found your daughter's cell phone and I want to return it to her. And he goes very curmudgeonly, which daughter? I go, the one who lives in Manhattan. He goes, well, I have 4 daughters, and 2 of them live in Manhattan. I'm like, okay. So the one with the shoulder length brown hair, Emily. Oh, great. I found Emily's phone. Can you call her? Because people still also had landlines back then.
Yeah.
And let her know that I have her phone. Well, why can't you call her? Because I have her phone and I don't know how to reach her.
Wow. Wow.
So I'm like, here's my number. I gave him my phone number and my office number. I said, just have her reach out to me. So he, fine, hangs up. I'm like, well, okay. So the next day I get a call and it was Emily, and she was so thankful. And she's
Oh,
like, I can come by your office at lunch and pick it up. So she does. She comes by 59th and 5th, and we meet in the lobby. And she was so sweet. She brought me like a little gift card to like Bloomingdale's or something, just like, $20
nice.
bucks. So I'm like, that's so sweet. And then we just started chatting, like, what do you do? Well, what do you do? Well, by day I do Estee Lauder, at night I'm a comedian. She's like, oh, that's so cool. I'd love to see one of your shows. Blah, blah, blah. That's it. Like, I think that's my karma for the week, maybe the month,
Yeah.
putting it out there. Well, about 3 months later, I run into a woman who is one of the few women, owns one of the few women-owned comedy clubs in New York City,
Okay.
Delilah. And Delilah's like, Karith, you're never going to believe this. I was sitting on a plane next to the girl whose phone you found. I go,
What a small
what?
world.
She goes, yeah, because I guess they were sitting next to each other. What do you do? What do you do? I own a comedy club. Oh, I just met a comedian, Karith Foster. She found my phone. I'm like, okay, that's cool. She goes, this is where goosebump time. She hadn't spoken to her father in years. They'd been estranged for years. She was on that plane to go and see him
Wow.
because they'd reconnected.
So that opened the door to conversation that would not have happened otherwise.
Just because I decided to be kind. Right. And this story is not about me, right? It's about
No, it's
just
about the power.
thing that you can do, right? That
Yeah.
will have exponential effects from kindness.
Wow. Wow. And now you got me thinking. You got me thinking of situations. Holy cow. I was coming home from Philadelphia on the train. It's about a 45, 50-minute ride for me. And there's a young man kind of almost in a fetal position in the seat next to me, crying, just crying. So I'm on, as we are all on our phone, and I see it. So I go in my purse like the old lady. I go in my purse, and you know how Kleenex in your purse gets a little beat up. Let's just be honest. But I grab this beaten up Kleenex, it's clean, and I take it over and I give it to him. And he's like, thank you. So then I'm back at my phone, riding along, and it's bothering me. It's bothering me. So I handwrite a little note, and I have my business card with my contact information. So I was getting off before he was. I gave him that information, and I said, listen, I hope you feel better. And he took it. A couple weeks later, I got a note from him saying, I am the young man on the train that you gave the note to. And I want you to know, in that moment, that was something that helped me see hope, that helped me see there is goodness in the world. And I thought to myself, a lot of us, like, even with the phone, Karith, you could have just given it to the bus driver. It still would have been a nice thing. Like, you found it, you turned it in, but you went that extra mile. It was personal for you. You wanted to make, and what a difference it makes. So it further reinforces for me, in those situations, go the extra step.
Yeah.
Do it. Oh, that is mind-boggling, Karith. I'd love to know where they are now. How is she? How's her dad? What's
know.
going on?
I know. I went, that was so many years ago. All I
Wow.
have is that story, but you know what? That story just, it touches people.
Yes.
It touches people. And that's why, in my mind, that's part of why it happened, right?
Yeah. Oh, there's such power with kindness.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we both do comedy, and I just reached out in the chat. I know we've got some folks who are listening in, and I actually had some folks sending me some nice little text messages. So thanks, friends, for sending them. But if you have any questions for Karith, feel free to put them in the chat. And in the meantime,
I'll put my reading glasses on for you.
and I'm like, I got mine on, I'm watching, and Darby keeps me in check. By the way, gang, Darby Beeford is on, and she is our chat room ambassador. So you'll see her from time to time posting things in the chat. And feel free, before we log off, those three little dots in chat, if you click on save chat, you'll be able to save all the links that she's sharing with you. So, but in the meantime, we'll just keep our conversation going. So I'm fascinated with, well, this is really what really bonded us with the whole comedy thing, and you got
Yeah.
into comedy in New York. So did you take a workshop? Did you just do open mics? Like, how did it all
Oh my
start for you
goodness.
in comedy?
I mean, it started when I was a little kid loving comedy, right?
Yeah.
Never
Yeah.
thinking I would do it ever. But just like sneaking to stay up late to watch the Tonight Show to see who the comics are going to be. Because I
Yeah,
just thought comics were so smart and brilliant and
totally.
like like how do you take something that's really simple and then extrapolate on it and take it to the next level? How do you take something that's really complex and you break it down so that everybody can get it, right? It's so
Yeah.
universal and it connects us. And that's what I loved about it. Like, and that's why I incorporate humor into the work that I do because it's very cathartic. Now, you know, as a comedian, that a lot of comedy comes from pain, and it does.
Yes.
I mean, that's why some of the world's most famous comedians are people who've gone through some stuff, right? Jewish people, Black people, gay
Yeah.
people, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
folks who've gone through some stuff, and everybody goes through some stuff. Like, that's just part of the human condition. And we take that stuff, we process it, hopefully, because it's not funny if it's not processed. And then we churn it into an experience and lessons and metaphors that hopefully everybody else who may be going through that, or maybe even be on the sidelines from it, can get a glimpse into so that
Yeah.
they can have a better understanding of our collective humanity and experience.
It's a gift to be able to do comedy, not just from the preparation and the talent perspective, but I think it's being able to express yourself in that way and
It is.
uplift. I did my first synagogue gig on Sunday night, which was it was a delight. It was a group of lovely women in North Jersey, and I think I may have been the only Catholic in the room. I don't know, but it was all good, and we just
You're
had
the
such
only
a good
shiksa in
time.
the audience.
It's cute though. I honestly, because I've a lot of my friends are Jewish. Jews and Catholics have a lot in common. I mean, first of all, we just embrace guilt and shame like no
Like
other group.
nobody's business. You rock
Yes, like
stars at that.
that is our common bond. But I find a lot, to your point, Jews, Catholics, good comics,
Oh
good
yeah.
comics.
Oh
There's a
yeah.
lot of stuff that is just funny about our upbringing and our traditions, and yeah,
I love it. I've
it
I've done bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs. I did do a wedding once. Literally did comedy at a wedding, a Jewish
wow,
wedding. I was the youngest, brownest member of the Friars Club in New York City.
nice.
I'm like, I feel like I'm half Jewish on the inside. Like I'm just actually
I do.
legitimately, I do have Jewish blood. My family's Jewish on part of my family. But it's just so funny. Like it's so I love that we're talking about this because this ties into the diversity work, right? The
Yeah,
inversity, I call it, because the reality is we have more in common than we don't. And we're letting the surface stuff keep us at each other's throats. And when I say surface stuff, I'm not saying it's not important and it shouldn't be honored and regarded and celebrated, but it's stuff that when something like 9/11 happens, doesn't frigging matter.
yeah, it really
You're there
doesn't.
to help people, right? When we have a natural disaster, when people need to be rescued from their houses in canoes because of a flood, you're not asking who they pray to or who they sleep with. That's surface stuff.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter. And that's what I try to do and get to with the humor and with, of course, inversity. And it really ties into the perfect or happy umbrella because, we're not just looking for perfection in ourselves. We try to find it in other people too. And they will always fall short, just like we will. So if we can get over that
yeah.
and stop expecting other people to be perfect, stop expecting us to be perfect, how much happier that will be. Like the weight
Gosh,
that
it
can
does.
come off of our shoulders, just letting people be who they are. So long as everybody's a consenting adult, no animals and children are being hurt. Like, what's the problem? Why the judgment? Why?
I ask that all the time, and I think it's we really look at the world from one of two ways: a place of love or a place of judgment. And I'll tell you what, place of love is a much lighter place to be. And this doesn't mean you're happy-go-lucky all the time in a fake way and you turn a blind eye to bad stuff. No, what it's saying is, in this moment, as I am observing something, how can I respond from a place of love?
Yes.
Right? Even something that you don't like. You're a manager at work and you have a person who reports to you who is not behaving in a way that is professional or appropriate or how you'd like them to behave. If you ask yourself, how can I respond from a place of love? You are going to handle that very differently than if you say, I'm coming from a place of judgment. Totally different energy. And
Absolutely.
it's funny, Karith, when I bring up love in a corporate setting, it's
Mhm.
usually met with a little like, love, but we're at work.
Well,
Well,
yeah.
I will say, recently I did a gig, Digital Ocean in New York City,
Uh-huh.
and really neat company. And I brought up coming from a place of love. I said, I know this is weird. We're in a corporate setting. Please forgive me. I want you to come from a place of love. And this man raised his hand, William. He was so wonderful. He said, Teresa, love is one of our core values.
Oh, that's so great.
Oh, I got a little teary eyed. I'm
That's
like,
so great.
who has love as a core value?
That's
No
awesome.
wonder, Karith, when I walked in the door to that organization, I felt good. There was
Yep.
a warmth. So, but this all goes back to the work you're doing, which is this is not complex. There's not like a model that you have to memorize. It is very simple. It is very just come from love. Be kind.
Yep.
Recognize that we're all going through some tough stuff. Recognize that we all didn't have the same path to where we are, and our paths are equally valid. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what true diversity is, right? Diversity, like instead of the division part of it, we should focus on the fact that there's multiple avenues, multiple experiences, multiple thoughts and ideas. And, how boring would the world be if we all thought and dressed and looked and talked and ate and,
Yeah.
the same way?
I
We'd be
know.
miserable. We'd be
No.
miserable.
Karith, give me a piece of what you do in your diversity work and in your training work, because I've been in the training field. Oh my gosh, 1987 I got into this field. I know I look so much younger, thank you, but I've been in this field a
You do.
long time. So I've seen so much that's out there. I was very impressed with you when we did have a conversation about diversity training. Give us a piece of what you do that helps people see things in a way that may prompt them to change behavior or give benefit of the doubt. What is something that you'd
Sure.
share?
So one little nugget. So inversity, that's a new word for a lot of people. It's
Yes.
a brand new word. And the reason I came up with the word inversity is because even diversity, the root of the word, has divide, division, right? We're shocked we're not all coming together under that umbrella. But again, it's about shifting the focus from what separates and divides us to what do we have in common. How can
Yes.
we be truly inclusive of one another? But most importantly and powerfully, how can we be introspective, understand your value and worth so you can see it in somebody else? This work has to start from the inside
Yeah.
before it can go outside. We've been doing this backwards. We've been trying to force it from the outside in for decades. And we see what's happening. It's not going well.
No.
Now, one little tidbit that I offer people is, if they're like, but we are so different. We are so different. Well, so I lecture all over. I had a wonderful opportunity to lecture at Stanford Graduate School of Business
Wow.
for several years in a row. And I was invited to be a luminary for the Knight Hennessy Scholars Program, which is like Oxford's equivalent of Rhodes Scholars. So I got to go there and take the university work. And there was another gentleman there, Spector. I'm trying to remember his first name, Michael Spector. He's a writer. He writes for the New Yorker, and he's an adjunct professor there who teaches biology. And he was there giving lectures on DNA and gene editing. and CRISPR, like some pretty controversial stuff, because
Yeah.
we're either talking about, curing sickle cell anemia or creating designer babies. Like, it can kind of go. But I was fascinated because I'm like, oh, this is the guy to ask about, like, how close are we genetically to one another? He's going to have the answer. And I can take this to my audience and just be like, look, we're just a couple percentage points away from one,
Yes.
So I asked him after he spoke, I go, how close are we genetically to one another? I want to be able to give a percentage to my audience.
Yeah.
He goes, Karith,
Right.
we are 99.99986% the same. I go, so
Wow.
wait a second. We're fighting over 4/10,000ths of a percentage point.
Wow.
My mind, that was, skin color, melanin content, hair texture, eye color, you know what I mean? He goes, no, that's not even that. That 4/10,000ths of a percentage point has to do with chromosomal anomalies. Like if someone has Down syndrome or something else that's good, that's what that's about.
Wow.
I'm like, my mind was blown. Like, and so
That's
when you get
great
people
data.
that way, right? You're
Yeah.
like, oh, let's reframe how we see one another.
Yeah. It's, I'm telling you, it all comes back to love or judgment.
Yeah.
Love or judgment, or my friend has said, love or fear. Do you respond from love or
Absolutely.
fear? Yeah.
And if you don't love yourself, how can you love anybody else? That's not
know,
just true for romantic relationships.
that is really the root of a lot of this. I find a lot of the folks who are judgy, and then I get judgy about them being judgy, but then I realize, they need a hug. Like that person needs a hug. I'm not happy with their behavior, but I think that lack of self-love drives a lot of the judginess, the bad behavior, the comments, and
Teresa, hurt people, right?
they do. Yeah. It's the diversity training world. It's an interesting thing to watch. I actually fell into it a little bit inadvertently, because typically when people say, hey, you want to do something, I'm like, that's not my thought leadership. Let me give it to someone who really does it. But I fell into it. I was working with a client. We were watching the LinkedIn. I don't know if you guys watch the LinkedIn learning programs that they have. So they have a diversity series, and they said, do me a favor. Would you facilitate the conversation around each of these? And I thought, well, I'm not really a thought leader, but the thought leader has just spoken. So well, let me tell you something. There were some things that came up and I'm like, not quite sure how to respond to this. So I'm going to pitch it your way, Karith. Couple of the gentlemen that were on the call brought up the fact that they're just good with everybody. They have worked around the world and find a way to make it work with people in every culture around the world. And they just are a good person. So they don't appreciate being told that there are micro inequities and things that they need to look out for, because they've been working in the world a long time and have built good relationships. And I take offense at the fact that I'm being told that I have these micro inequities and I have these biases. They didn't like that. These biases. I do not have biases. And then I thought, well, like we all have a bias because it's just because we've come through things, and that's where, but I struggled with how to handle that question. How do we help somebody who says, don't tell me I'm biased. I'm not biased. I'm a good person.
So you know what? You are completely entitled to come for that perspective, but understand that that's your perspective and your experience and not everyone else's. And there are other people on here who understand that bias is something that is pretty much universal. I mean,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
There are over 50 plus types of bias that have been identified. Like, you don't tell me you don't gravitate towards somebody who is dressed like you, who may have an, like you, if you're traveling abroad, you hear an American accent or a British accent or a Spanish accent, and you don't gravitate toward that. That's affinity bias. We all have bias. We have to stop painting it as this death knell, right, on who you are as a person.
Okay.
The idea is to be able to identify the bias, right? Put a name to it, so that when it comes up, it doesn't keep you from being that good person. So you're still operating at an optimum level. You're still operating out of a place of equity if you believe that's what you're doing. It's so that you don't let the bias come in like in a covert cloak, take over, and then you ruin the opportunity for a relationship, an experience, or an opportunity.
Yeah, it's this is tough work, Karith.
It is not for the weak
No.
apart, faint of spirit, weak of heart. Yeah.
Yeah, it is tough work. Well, I'm watching the clock here because I want to make sure that we honor our time, and we are like buzzing right along. So I want to make sure that I give you an opportunity. Like, what's coming up for you? Do you have new things coming out? Is there something that you'd like us to know about?
So actually, on the 8th, I am hosting a conversation on you can go to Inversity Solutions to see it. I'm hosting a conversation. It's going to be a webinar. It's free on not imagining, but reframing how we talk about diversity and inclusion and what happens when it goes in the wrong direction. And so often, we think of D&I work or DEI work as a two-way street when it's really a 6-lane highway.
Okay.
And that's what I'll be delving into on Thursday, the 8th at 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern on Zoom. And you know what? I know if you go to inversitysolutions.com, and I will have it on my LinkedIn page as well.
Awesome.
The link
All
for
right,
you to
I was going to ask you,
Sure,
how do
sure,
we
sure.
register? Because I'm sure there's folks who would like to hop in.
And in my free time, I'm not being mom and having a sick husband.
And all the extra time you have.
I do have a sequel to Perfect or Happy. But it's one for students. So for high school students, college students, grad students, students of life.
Yes.
Because there's so much pressure for them right now. I can't even imagine being an adolescent right now, or a teenager, or someone in college just dealing with all the stress and the strain and the pressure and trying to be perfect and not knowing that it's okay not to be. And that was the whole idea behind the book, is to give people permission, right? Permission to just be you.
We need the reinforcement, Karith. We need that.
Yeah.
Because socially, that is not the message we're getting all around us. But yet, I appreciate your candor, your authenticity, your wisdom, and your love. You come from a place of love, Karith.
Thank you.
You do. So I want to thank you for joining us today. Darby, thank you for working behind the scenes. My friends that are logged on, thank you for joining us. Folks that are in Facebook world, I know you couldn't chat in the chat here with us, but I'm going to look at your comments on Facebook to see what you have to say. If you haven't already purchased the book, it's a great book. If you have a book club, this would be a neat thing to do with your book club, to read it and talk about it and make it real for your group. Definitely connect with us on LinkedIn, reach out, stay in touch. If you have thoughts or questions for either of us after the program, please stay in touch. And with that, I'm going to give you a hug from just outside Philadelphia all the way to Texas. Kara, thank you.
I feel it. Thank you, my friend.
All right, you guys, thank you so much. Karith, I'm going to reach out right after our Zoom just to wrap things up with you. Okay. And Darby, thank you for your help. And everybody have a nice rest of your day. Take care.